This episode of Ask the Doctors has been brought to you by Wayne County Government.
I wear my mask to keep my family and friends safe. I think it's important to wash your hands because it wipes off the germs. When I play with my friends, we stay 6 feet apart. Keep wearing our masks so we can stay in school. I wear my mask so people don't get sick. I think it's good to wear your mask because it encourages other people to wear their mask.
This episode of Ask the Doctors has been brought Good afternoon, Happy New Year, and welcome to Ask the Doctors on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11, WCTV Channel 21, and streaming on Facebook Live. After taking a couple of weeks off to hopefully enjoy the holiday season, we are back. It has been an eventful time off. We were just really starting to get into the vaccination process. Now we have the vaccination process. We have 2 mutations of the virus to talk about. So we have our doctors with us, Dr. David Jetmore, Wayne County Health Officer, Dr. Thomas Huth, Vice President of Medical Affairs at Reed Health. Gentlemen, Happy New Year. Hopefully you had a great holiday season.
Sure did. Hope you did too.
It was fun.
Great to slow down for a little bit.
At least a little bit. You can slow down, but obviously I don't think either one of you were able to completely stop during that time frame. So Dr. Jetmore, we'll start with you. Kind of catch us up on your last couple of weeks and what we need to know.
Well, there's so much to talk about, but as far as the county goes, we're at 148 deaths, and our positivity rate is 11.3, which I think is better than the state has been doing. I didn't check it this morning, but they reported 16.1% the other day when I looked at the ISDH website. We had 97 cases Wednesday and 68 yesterday when we were testing. And this had dropped down to around 40 people a day over Thanksgiving, but I think a lot of that was due to the fact that testing kind of dropped off. People were traveling or spending time in the holidays. I did want to say that the county finally is going to take delivery in 3 weeks of our mobile unit. I had said earlier that this was provided by the town and the county, but I misspoke. It's totally paid for with county funds, and kind of the guy that's behind that is Ken Paus, the county commissioner. But that will be the beginning of February, which is when we are going to hopefully have more and more vaccine to roll out and vaccinate people with. But this will allow us to go out with a strike force to towns in western part of the county or anywhere, and do mass vaccinations. Our own clinic will be set up, and we'll begin doing vaccinations with the Moderna vaccine at 11 o'clock on Monday. We've only been allocated we'll get 1,000 doses this month, but we'll get 200 doses on Monday, then 400 the following Monday, then 400 the Monday after that. So we will be doing phase 1B, which is first responders, policemen, firemen, paramedic, ambulance drivers, and also people who are 80 years old or older. If you're 80 years old, you can go to a website called ourshot.in.org and make an appointment for yourself. or you can just call 211 and someone will answer the phone. Now, they may not answer on the first ring. Be aware of that. But you can, someone will help you register and make an appointment to get your vaccination. The state wants to roll this out first to 80 or above, then 70 and above, then 60 and above. I think 60 and above is account for, Tom probably knows this number exactly, but 80% of the deaths since the pandemic has started. So the state wants to focus on getting those people vaccinated. And Walgreens and CVS will be, in a contract with the federal government, will be vaccinating the nursing homes. So the infrastructure, I think, is in place. It's just a matter of getting vaccine. We've got, the state of Indiana has gotten about 350,000 doses so far. Mm-hmm. And there's 1.5 million people that are over age 80 in Indiana, in a 6 million population. So you can see the difficulties.
It's going to take a while. You're watching Ask the Doctors on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. At least now you are. I understand that we weren't previously, but we're all good. Dr. Huth, how was your holiday, and what do we need to know?
Holiday was good. Didn't get to take as much time off as I'd like to, but we did get a couple days out there. Lots going on all the time in COVID and vaccination and so forth. Actually, the hospital volumes have moderated a little bit, but they're still hovering at a higher level than we'd really like to have. And I've been reflecting to my colleagues lately. I think if we look back over the entirety of the pandemic, because we've been in a series of waves. We've never really been not in a wave. It's just the one over the summer was so low that, in comparison to either end since then, it kind of seems like it was a carefree holiday almost. But in actuality, we are constantly in waves. We are going to constantly be in waves. The question is, what are we going to do between now and the start of the next wave? Who knows how high that will be? The last one got awfully close to really causing pretty severe constriction of hospital services at Reed. I mean, we have, and it's still set up, but we came really close to utilizing the overflow space that we created in a conference hall. It came one day we were within a patient or two, an admission or two of needing to do that. Fortunately, things are better since then, but I think we're just in a lull before the next wave, and so that's what I'm trying to get our system focused on, how to prepare for the next. And to me, the big thing is to get all healthcare workers possible immunized, which is available to all of them now. Not everybody's taking advantage of that, but we're seeing a little bit of increase in adoption. But now is coinciding with this wave of 80-plus-year-olds who want to get on the vaccination schedule. Mm-hmm. Consequently, we're expanding our vaccination schedules. And we are probably going to move to having a site that's within Reed just to take care of the Reed folks' needs, and then have a more public-facing, a little bit more accessible site at the fairgrounds, starting on January the 18th. This is kind of breaking news. I'm tipping the news release aspect of this a little bit, but we're going to be announcing that here shortly. But all that will be preparatory to being able to support a truly mass vaccination effort when the supply comes about. The big problem right now is the supply of vaccine, which is constrained, but I foresee that breaking loose before too long. I mean, Moderna announced a few days ago that they are going to actually produce an extra 100 million doses for the U.S. market in the first quarter of this year that they had not previously been committed to. And that's before you get to the other vaccines that are in the pipeline None of them have applied for EUA yet, but we know that AstraZeneca is out there. We know that Johnson & Johnson's out there. And so hopefully all this will come together. We'll have very plentiful supply really in the foreseeable future and be able to mass vaccinate anybody and everybody who wants to have it. I don't know when exactly. The state is in control of that. Mm-hmm. And as Dr. Jetmer pointed out, they're really concentrating on those who are at the highest risk for poor outcomes from the disease. And just like you said, Dave, you know, the deaths are highly weighted to the age factor. Over age 80 is over 60% of the deaths. And over age 60 is about, you said 80 or so. It's about that. 80 to 90% of the deaths are in those age groups. It's really amazing how focused this disease is on getting to the elderly and infirm. I mean, there's about an 800-fold difference in risk for death between age 25 to age 85, which is astounding. And, you know, so that's why the state is focusing on that. If they have limited resources, they're trying to make sure it gets first to the people who can benefit the most. And but the new opening of the schedules to the 80-plus crowd is really causing a wave of interest. And you mentioned that you know, if you call 211, you know, don't expect to get right through. We're hearing that's exactly the case. People have to call right now. They have to call multiple times. Those who are savvy enough to use the website are getting errors and things related to the site being crushed. So, you know, really the only advice that we can give to people is, you know, you're welcome to call us to ask about it, but really the only thing to do is keep trying.
You know, I think one thing that's interesting, and it's two different strategies. The federal government has taken delivery of these vaccines and held back half of them. And the reason they've done that is because it's a 2-dose vaccine. Mm-hmm. But the incoming administration has indicated that they won't use that strategy, that they'll release all of those, except for a small number, but they'll release all of those vaccines to give the first shot, with the idea that Moderna and Pfizer will be able, their manufacturing will be able to keep up enough to give that second dose. And also, I think the thought is, if you get the Pfizer vaccine, studies have shown it's got 50% efficacy, which is not nearly as good as 95. However, remember we were talking in the spring, the FDA would have accepted a vaccine that was 50% efficacious. So there may be, January the 20th may be the date where we see more vaccine.
You're watching In Focus on Whitewater Community, sorry, wrong show. You're watching Ask the Doctors on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV
Well, that
Channel
had me
11.
worried. I thought I had showed up.
You thought you showed up for the wrong show.
Wrong show.
WCTV Channel 21 on Facebook Live. We are taking your questions for the doctors. We also have a guest on Zoom, Christine Stinson. Before we go to her, she gave us kind of a tour of what the health department's vaccine clinic is going to look like. She was working with Ryan Harris on that. So if you all kind of roll that, on the other side, we'll bring Christine into this conversation.
Hello. Welcome to the Wayne County COVID Vaccination Center. I'm going to take you a tour of what it's going to be like when we open up. Right now, you've entered into our welcome center. There'll be a greeter sitting here that will be the first person that you talk to, and they'll kind of do an intake with you, and just to make sure that you're well enough to receive the vaccine. From there, we'll go this way. We'll have a series of mazes that the community will go through as we're waiting in line to get the vaccine. Right now, as we're only getting a couple of hundred doses to start out with, this probably won't be utilized for our first few weeks. I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce you to Chris Simons. He's the new Clinical Director of Services for the Wayne County Health Department. At this point, you're entering into the registration portion of receiving your vaccination. We'll have registration stations. A lot of times they'll be filled by our National Guard service members that are utilized in Wayne County right now. They'll flip over from the testing side over to the COVID vaccination side and help us with registration. We sure appreciate all the work that the National Guard is doing for Wayne County. Once you've been registered, then you'll just make a quick left and you'll enter into our vaccination center. And this will be where our 6 vaccinators will be stationed ready to give you your vaccine. And then once you receive your vaccination, there's always, anytime you get a vaccine, a period of time that we want to observe you is usually 15 minutes. With the COVID vaccine, you'll be asked to stay in our recovery area for 15 minutes. Unless you've had some kind of anaphylactic reaction in your lifetime, then we'll ask you to stick around for 30 minutes. We will have some refreshments available for you in this time. We'll have a television set up, and we'll have one of our employees going over how to register for that second vaccine. With the Moderna vaccine, you'll be asked to register for your second dose 28 days after your first dose. And remember, while we're trying to get at least 2/3 of the population vaccinated, please practice social distancing, wear your mask, and avoid large gatherings.
How are you?
I am very, very well. Thank you for having me on today.
No problem. Nice walkthrough of what's going to happen there. What do you want? Let's start with real quick. What do you want people to know right now? Because I know you were on our Facebook page answering some questions a couple of days ago.
I was. I try not to get on social media because it drives me nuts sometimes. But when I see someone asking a genuine question, I do try to reach out and either answer them publicly, or I will private message people with answers, so they're getting good information. But what I want people to know right now is we have the vaccine and we're ready to open Monday. We're full for Monday. Those appointments went like that. I mean, like wildfire. And was very, very excited to see that many people wanting to take the vaccine. I've said often, you know, the vaccine isn't what saves lives. The vaccination is what saves lives. Mm-hmm. So that vaccine sitting in a vial doesn't do anyone any good. We need to get that into someone's arm. So our appointments, you know, are filling up. I just called 211 just as you guys were talking and got right through. So if people are having problems or tried this morning and gave up, don't give up. Call 211. They're there to assist you. If you're having problems that way, I did put 2 employees to man phones, and we were registering people. So we will assist in any way to get people scheduled and into a vaccination slot so we can get this vaccine out the door as quickly as we possibly can. And we're excited to get started. Hope to receive more and more vaccine, like Dr. Jetmore was talking about. If we can break up this log jam of the, you know, kind of the logistics of getting it from the manufacturer to the state, to the local health departments, and to our hospitals that are participating in phase 1B.
Before I turn this over to the doctors, because I'm sure they have better questions than I do, talk about, now that you've turned that into a vaccination clinic, what about testing? Where do people go for that?
We've kept it in the same place, and anyone that's familiar with Elder Beerman, it's a vast, expansive space. And so for vaccinations, you will come in the south doors, and people that are directionally challenged, such as myself, if you know where the parking lot is, park in the parking lot and come in those doors. If you want to get tested, and boy, do we encourage people to continue to test. That is critical as we're still maneuvering from this, and we have seen a huge drop-off in our numbers of testing. We went from testing over 300 a day down to barely getting over 100 a day, which is still good, but we always strive to do better. So if you're coming here for testing, you'll park on 6th Street and come in the doors on 6th Street. So there's 2 different entrances and exits. The two will not commingle. A big separation. I can kind of turn things around. What you're looking at in the background right now, this is our observation area. So once you get the vaccine, I see Stephanie back there. We're just observing her because she's strange. No. So that's the observation area. And then all the way down there, that is the testing site. So we're not in the same area, but it's a good space for the health department because we do have limited staff and we can kind of share resources and things like that. So I can monitor both sites at the same time.
Gentlemen, I know one of you all have a more interesting question. Talk to me.
I'll go first. Christine, you're probably getting lots of phone calls from people. What are they asking most frequently?
How to get an appointment. That's the number one question, and I'm really happy. We, like I said, we try to assist them. We are turning people to 211. I do know that it got overwhelmed this morning, but like I said, I just tried to call it, got right through. So that is there. There is also the rshot.in.gov. If you're a little more computer savvy, that you can go in there. And then if both of those are frustrating to you and you can't get that done, call the health department. If we can help you and get you registered, we will also assist in trying to do that. I will tell you, Commissioner Butters has allowed me to give her phone number out to people. So you can call Mary Ann Butters and she will assist too. So all of us, it's a team effort in this county and really proud to be a part of that. Everyone is trying very hard to assist people to get this done. The next question that I get is probably, when is it my turn? When are they going to allow me? I am 55 and I have comorbidities. I'm 40, but I'm a diabetic. When can I come in and get my shot? And the uncomfortable answer is, I'm not really sure yet. We do know that the state is going to do 80 and older. The next group that'll be called forward is 70 and older. And then the next group, 60 and older. On one of my calls with the state this week, I did ask about people that had autoimmune disorders, because I have a lot of people that call and say, listen, I have an immune deficiency. And they told me to look for that in a couple of weeks. So that's not set in stone. We're just at the mercy of the state of when they call people forward. But please stay tuned to however you're getting your news, whether it's through the newspaper or a particular radio station, or I always tell people to tune in to Talking with the Doctors, because they, like Dr. Huth just showed, are cutting edge and they announce the most breaking news there.
Well, Christine, that was a great tour. It made me want to come down there and get revaccinated. It was so inviting. But
hey, how are you feeling? I heard you got your second shot.
Yeah, a little bit of soreness in my left shoulder, but none of the other, none of the aches or headaches or anything else. So I'm happy.
Yeah, I had my shot yesterday morning.
Did you have anything?
Nothing at all, not even an arm pain. So I was actually a little disappointed when I say that. People look at me like I've got two heads. Why would you want to have the side effects? But I say, first of all, I want to have some side effects so I can commiserate with people who do, and be an example that you can have the side effects, but you know what, you get over them and life goes on. But the other reason is that I have this idea in my mind. I always have with shots that if I don't have some side effects, it's like a feedback to me that my immune system is reacting. You know what I'm saying? It's totally irrational, actually, because that has not. There's really not a relation.
I was hoping if one of us had side effects, it would be you, Tom.
Yeah, that's right.
One of the things that's really encouraging when you look at that site, Christine, is how expansive it is. I mean, there's so much space, and it'll be so easy to keep track of people. Plus, there are no walls.
Yep.
So we can see everything that's going on. This is pretty exciting.
We will have some light refreshments. So we're going to try to entice people to want to stay for that 15 minutes with us. We will help people make their appointment for their second dose during that 15 minutes. You'll have a beverage and a light snack if you feel like you want to eat something. And hopefully we'll have good conversation, and then you'll be surprised when the 15 minutes is over and you'll go about your day. I just came from Reed getting my second dose. So very, very happy to have that done. I will post a video on the health department's Facebook page tomorrow talking about if I have any side effects. And if I have any side effects, I will let everyone know, boy, I have a headache or whatever, or hopefully I'll be like Dr. Huth and Jetmore and not have anything.
As you and your staff are testing, vaccinating, who's left in your building? and what's happening in your building, and why should people go there? What's still going on there?
Wow. Well, I have Chris Simons here, the Director of Clinical Services. He can talk about a lot of the other things that we're doing. Chris, this is Ask the Doctors.
Thank you. Right now, we will still have vital records, so birth and death records will still be active. Our STD and childhood immunizations will be active in the mornings. And then we're shuffling our staff over to the COVID vaccine for the afternoon.
Yeah, so we're trying not to get tunnel vision on just the COVID vaccine, because the last thing we want to do is focus so solely on COVID that we have some kind of cluster outbreak of measles or another childhood illness that is easily managed with vaccinations. So our vaccinations, childhood immunizations will stay active. We're just kind of shuffling the hours of our availability for that. And then our staff will be over here, and we're utilizing volunteers. We have a great roster of volunteers that are going to be called forward as we get more and more vaccinations.
What is your maximum number of vaccinations during a day? You've got a lot of space there, but it's limited. But what time
Right.
do you start vaccinating? How late do you go? And how many people do you think you can get in during a day?
Right, and there actually is a calculation that you do. Health departments have been working, through these, through FEMA and different things like that for decades. So it was great to put all of our training into practice. But through the calculations, our maximum is going to be 500 a day when we're fully open and 6 vaccinators. Although that's the federal calculations, we all know we can do better than that. So I would realistically, knowing the platform of registration and everything, we could easily get 700 to 1,000 through in a day, depending on how flexible they're going to allow us to be with that scheduling platform. But we will really be humming here and getting people in and out of here, and look forward to the challenge.
This starts Monday. You said your Monday is full, so people are looking down the line from that. Once again, tell us where they need to go, who they need to call in order to get scheduled.
You can always call 211. They will assist you in getting vaccinated. If that the program gets tied up, you can go on ourshot.in.gov, and there'll be some tabs that you'll click there. It'll say, I want to find a vaccination center. You'll click that. You'll put in your zip code, and both my site and Dr. Huth's site. So you can choose local health department or Reed Health to have your vaccination. Either is fine. We're not trying to corner the market, and Reed Health isn't trying to corner the market. So choose either one, whichever one has the availability that fits your schedule. Our site is open from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. right now, Monday through Friday. And that's only because we have a limited number of doses. Once we get more in, we're going to be running 7 days a week, and we're going to keep those hours 11 to 7. That allows us to be able to do vaccinations for other childhood immunizations in the mornings. and then my staff flips over here for that. If you're having problems at any of those sites, call the health department. I'll let Chris give the phone number, because in this past year, I cannot remember the health department's phone number. So Chris, give them the phone number.
It's 765-973-9245.
So you can always call them, and we have people standing by that can also assist you, helping to navigate through. Sometimes people just need us to talk them through what they're doing and get them into that scheduling portal, and then they're fine to get going on that. But that's it. That's all the places you can do to go get your shot. We will get more doses. Monday the 18th, we have 400 more doses coming, and then that following Monday we have more doses coming after that. So if you don't get one for next week, don't despair. More doses are coming and more opportunities.
Okay. Christine Stinson, Executive Director, Wayne County Health Department, thanks for taking some time and being with us, and I know we will continue to touch base with you on a regular basis.
Great. It was good to see all you guys.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're watching Ask the Doctors on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11, WCTV Channel 21, streaming on Facebook Live, and we're going to go ahead and turn to some of your questions for the doctors. We've got some numbers that we'll have Dr. Huth go through in just a little while, but right now we took a couple of weeks off, so let's see what you want to know. What percentage of Reed employees have had the COVID shot? Are they required to get it?
Percentage of Reed employees, I wish I had a precise number for, but we aren't able to collect that information directly. The state provides the scheduling software, and they're trying to create a report for us, but it's not done yet. I'm estimating that we've vaccinated somewhere between a third and a quarter, or between a quarter and a third. There are some people coming from the outside. You can just say that because we've given about 1,000 doses so far, and that's all we've had. I do have another 3,000 doses that we're trying to get out in the next couple of weeks that are newly arrived. So anyway, the 1,000 we've given out are largely Reed staff, though not completely, and there are about 3,500 employees at Reed, so maybe around a third.
Okay. Are they required?
They are not required. That's an interesting conversation, because we do require influenza vaccine, and there are carve-outs and exceptions to that, but the general rule is everybody gets influenza vaccine. We've done that for several years. The issue with trying to require them for this is that these vaccines, both the Pfizer and the Moderna, and presumably others that follow, they've been authorized for emergency use. They don't have the normal full FDA approval. So technically they are still unapproved investigational drugs. I can use that term because that's exactly what's in the patient fact sheet that we're required to give out. And the patient fact sheet makes clear, therefore, that these shots are not mandatory, cannot be made mandatory, basically, by essentially that's the terms of the FDA authorization. And, that doesn't mean they're not safe. That doesn't mean they don't work. But what it does mean is that the normal amount of studies on a variety of issues beyond just do they work and do they cause severe side effects haven't yet been done. I'll just give you a quick example of that. One of the things we can't answer about the vaccines is we know that it reduces the rate of symptomatic COVID-19 illness by 95% or so. In the case of the Pfizer and Moderna is very similar. But does that mean you can't get COVID-19? Because what they did in these phase 3 studies is they only tested people who developed symptoms. They weren't testing everybody. If they had been testing everybody right along, they would have been able to detect whether anybody actually acquired the disease. We know, going back to the beginning almost, that there is a pretty high rate of asymptomatic carriage. and especially in younger folks. But that's true even for middle-aged and older folks. There's a fair amount of asymptomatic transmission of the disease. So one thing that hasn't been determined from the studies is, is it possible that the vaccines have more an effect on reducing the severity of the disease so that some people become, instead of being symptomatic, they have the asymptomatic carriage? Or do they actually avoid getting the infection altogether? We just don't know yet completely from a scientific standpoint. So there are questions like that the FDA wants answered. Another example is in the case of the Pfizer vaccine, they allowed children as young as 12 to enroll, but there were so few under age 16 that they only authorized it down to age 16. And so the FDA wants to have more studies that involve greater numbers of people under the age of 16. In the case of Moderna, they only enrolled people above age 18. And here's another example. We hear about these anaphylactic reactions that some people are having. It's a very small percentage, but it's a real thing. That didn't really show up in the phase 3 studies. Why? Because they excluded people who had anaphylactic reactions to other shots from the phase 3 studies. So now we're giving them more broadly than what were under the phase 3 umbrella, and we're seeing some things like that. So the FDA wants more studies before it gets final approval. All of that is background to, after all these things are done, the FDA is satisfied, the vaccines get the full FDA approval, that's the time when we'll probably start seeing some organizations require the vaccination. And Reed probably will too in that case.
That is
but right now,
normally-
we just don't feel that we can do that sort of ethically when there are questions on things, and and even the paperwork we have to give says it's voluntary. And I was on a webinar a few weeks ago for the State Chamber of Commerce where this question came up, and there was an attorney on the call who was saying, well, you can make it mandatory, and kind of basing it on the influenza model from a legal standpoint, sort of importing that over. But and I was saying the things that I just said to you. So I was a little bit of a maverick on the panel, and I'm not aware of any companies that are seriously thinking of requiring it. There could be some. I'm certainly not aware of any hospitals doing that, because most hospitals are aware of these distinctions of full FDA approval versus the emergency use authorization and the things that are implied in that. That is a super long-winded answer to a very simple question. Is Reed requiring it? That has a one-word answer, no. But I think in the future it will be required once it acquires full FDA approval.
That's normally years for a lot of vaccines, isn't it?
Yes. Normally. It could be shorter than that. I mean, I think these studies that the FDA is going to require to answer some of these questions about what exactly, how full and broad and widespread, and under what circumstances is the immunity, how can that be counted upon, and so forth. These questions about safety studies in children and all of that may take a little while to do, and probably will be done at a slightly leisurely pace compared to what they did for the emergency use. So I don't think there's going to be an imminent change in all that, especially since there are people having some issues with the vaccines. They'll probably do it more leisurely. But I compare that to the case of remdesivir, which is the antiviral drug that we're using in hospitalized patients. When that first came out, it was issued with emergency use authorization. But within 2 months, it received full FDA approval. Why? Because they actually had all the relevant studies done that the FDA needed and had questions about. They had them done already or close to being done. And the remdesivir, as it was rolled out, became rapidly apparent that it really does not have any unexpected issues associated with it. So that was easy. I think the vaccines are going to be a little bit more tricky and will take a little longer to receive the full FDA approval.
You're watching Ask the Doctors on WGTV Channel 11. Let's go to our next question. If you can donate blood for antibodies or plasma after your first vaccine injection, will giving this donation have any effect on your own buildup of immunity? If giving after you get the second dose, do you need to wait?
I don't think that the blood centers have really opined on all of this. I think the first question, if you donate plasma, will that affect your own ability to build up immunity? I don't think so. I can't think of a scientific scenario that would suggest there would be a problem with that. So I think we don't need to worry about that one, although I've not heard anybody opine on that exactly. Then the second part of the question is, how long after getting the second dose should you wait to start donating plasma? And I think if you get immunized, if you've only had one dose but you've got positive antibodies, the blood center will take your plasma right now. And the same thing at any point after the second dose. So as soon as you can be verified to have antibodies, they will take you. They do require that verification, either that you had an active COVID-19 infection with a positive test, or that you've got antibodies in your bloodstream. However you've acquired those antibodies,
But those
they will take
antibodies
your
won't be
plasma.
at their maximum level till 2 weeks after the second dose.
Yeah, it will probably take a little bit after the second dose to really fully develop that. There's some evidence that you can develop a positive antibody test even just after the first dose, but I don't think we know very much about how high that is. Would the antibody test detect that? I don't really know. We don't know much about that.
Okay. Next question. Let's keep going. My parents in their upper 80s have lived with us since April 2020. Their home is in Ohio. Can they get the vaccine here in Richmond through the health department, or do they have to get it in Ohio?
I think in this kind of an instance, if they were brought into our clinic, if they made an appointment, we would give them the vaccine. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't you agree, Tom?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we've not turned people away. If somebody's on our schedule, however they got there, we give them the vaccine, because at the end of the day, we want vaccines in arms, and we just don't want to send people away and have an unadministered vaccine sitting there. So I think the thing is that when you go to register your parents, then what will happen is you'll have to attest that they qualify, and they'll tell you, that the qualifications are there. But I think you can legitimately say they're a resident of Indiana. They've been with you for 6+ months, so. I mean, I think by anybody's test, essentially they reside in Indiana.
Yeah, and there's not going to be anybody that's going to be confrontational, or nobody's going to be down there trying to say, well, you've broken the rules. I mean, we want, in the spirit of this whole thing, this is a federal vaccine, and we want to vaccinate people.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's keep going. Are there many cases where people have gotten COVID-19 twice?
It's an interesting question, because there's what you kind of hear anecdotally, there's what has been proven scientifically, and there have been a number of cases, but not a large number of people who've been proven, absolutely proven in terms of the testing.
Yes.
And I'm thinking particularly that they have genetic testing. It's not just a positive PCR, which can have false positives. They have actually had the viral gene sequencing done to verify that they have actually had it twice, had the ability to get that done. There's only a relatively small number of people who fit that category, absolutely proven to have it twice. On the other hand, I hear all the time, about, somebody who supposedly had COVID-19 back in June, got it again in October or more recently than that. And, that's interesting, but I don't know that we can consider that to be proven in the same way.
No.
Some of these
and
more
you know,
verified ones are.
These cases, Tom, where people, where they've proven it, they've shown that the second infection was a genetically different virus from the first infection. Those first infections almost always are very mild. And there's been a great deal of evidence that shows you don't have nearly as much antibody response if you have a mild or asymptomatic infection. Now, having said that, people who have had COVID should get vaccinated, because the level of protection that they'll get will be higher and better and more easily ascertained than just getting an infection, because you're going to get different levels of protection from a natural infection as opposed to a vaccination.
Yep.
We're going to get to some numbers with Dr. Huth in just a minute. Let's see if we can get one more question in before we go to that. I'm about 90 days out from having COVID-19. Is it too late for me to give blood for the convalescent plasma?
No, not at all. Not that I know of. No, they want you to wait a period of time, at least 28 days after acute infection, in order to start giving plasma. But I think they'll take it kind of indefinitely after that.
Don't your antibody levels fall off after a
Yeah, I mean,
3, 4,
you just
5
kind of refer
months?
to it. We have that's why we want people who have had COVID-19 previously to get vaccinated, right? Because we think that the vaccine generates a higher, more durable immune response. So there is evidence that in people, particularly if they have mild disease, don't have as high and it's not as durable, it may trail off after a time. So, but I mean, just in terms of process, if you've had a proven case of COVID-19 and you wait 28 days and go to start your blood, they'll just take your plasma. I don't know if they're testing it or not for antibodies. They might be. Come to think of it, I think I saw where they are testing for antibodies routinely. And maybe not, I don't know if they're doing it with plasma, but they are doing it when you donate blood, whole blood. But, whatever the process is, I have not heard that there's like an end to it once you kind of get into their system. And to my mind, that's a little bit of an issue, because it may be, because of this problem of durability of antibody response, is maybe one reason why we haven't had as great a response, therapeutic response of using convalescent sera in sick patients. It's been very inconstant. And I think that I just wonder if that's because, there's huge variability in the antibody levels, and maybe after a time people who've been donating don't really have much antibody anymore. We just don't know very much about that.
Okay. Let's take a break. Let's catch up on, we've had a couple of weeks. You said that things have gotten a little bit better in your facility. Hopefully that's the continuing trend, but let's see where things are.
Sure. Well, as soon as Ryan can start showing some graphics there. These are the Wayne County data, and I don't know if you want to zoom in on sort of the right-hand part of the graph, Ryan and Stephen. The current week in progress is the last bar, and through yesterday there were 261 lab-positive cases, and I'm offering a little projection that we should wind up about 365 cases through tomorrow. So that'll be between today and tomorrow, which will comprise the week. Should wind up about 365. I also realized recently that I had enough data to start doing some statistical estimates of the error around that, the variability around my projections. So we'll see if I'm right. Maybe we'll come back and verify that. But basically what I'm saying here is plus or minus 13. So about 350 to 380 is probably where we should land for the week. And that's actually up a little bit.
No,
What's that?
I'll hold on to that. We'll check that next week.
Absolutely. Check me on that. That's just simple math. The math sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. That's a 95% confidence interval, by the way, which means there's a 5% chance I'll be wrong. So if I'm wrong, it fell
You're just
out
at
there.
5%.
It's not your fault. Right?
What's that?
It's not your fault.
It's not my fault.
That's right.
It's the calculator's fault. The second graphic is the death graphic, not to be all morbid and everything, but there just was such a big change beginning October the 1st, and obviously when you see that previous curve, we know from estimates of case fatality from the state data that based on a number of cases that we've had over age 70 from October 1st, since that time we should have around 160 deaths, 159 is what the calculator says. We've had 133 so far, which I think is maybe somewhat encouraging that we're having a little bit better experience than what the estimates would suggest we should be seeing. Although 133 deaths is way too many. Then the last page is the READ-specific data. And this is the average weekly numbers since the beginning of the pandemic, and a couple things to note. One is around the end of November, beginning of December is when we had our absolute peak, and I referred to the experience that we were a razor's thin margin from having to house people in our conference facility, but then things got better from there. But that was the case until about December the 19th, but we've been up a bit since then. I do not know if this means we're on the start of a new upswing. Hopefully not. But if you look at the totality of the graph, and maybe Ryan can zoom out a little bit so you can see that, the way I'm thinking about it is that we've had 3 waves. You know, we had that initial wave. The middle wave was not so big, but that was a wave. And then we've had this big wave at the end of the year. You know, we will always be in a wave, I guess is my conclusion. I'm assuming that to be the case. And what we do between now and the beginning of the next wave is absolutely of critical importance. And that means getting as much vaccine into the highest risk people as we can, getting as much vaccine into the caregivers, first responders as we can, will make a big difference. One of the problems we had at the end of November when we were at our absolute peak was that not only did we have huge volumes in the hospital, but there were a lot of staff sick and out with COVID-19. So that put a lot of pressure on the staffing. And I hope that for the next wave, we can avoid a lot of that by getting as many READ folks vaccinated now so that there'll be less shortages when we have the next wave.
We've got about 6 minutes left to go. Take a little time. Talk to us about what we're hearing as far as there being a couple of additional strains of this virus, more contagious, not as deadly. Does that mean we need to change anything that we're doing? And when they say more contagious, how'd they figure that out? I mean, what are they wanting us to do differently?
They're referring to the R number, which we haven't talked much about since last spring, but the number of people that the average infected person infects. So if I have COVID, I would on average infect 3 others, and then they would infect 9, then they would infect 27, and so it goes. But these new strains, the one in England, which really has caused the numbers in England to go up, and the one in South Africa, none of them, there's not been any evidence that these viruses are going to be less affected by vaccination. There is some semi-anecdotal evidence that the vaccine or the virus in South Africa may be a little more tougher on children. But otherwise, the symptoms are the same. It's just more people are getting infected. So there are more people in the hospital, there are more deaths. It just accelerates the whole process.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about these strains. These are not the first 2 mutant strains. I would take you back to probably midsummer when there was concern about another mutant strain called D614G.
I missed that one, sorry.
That kind of made a little bit of waves and then kind of went away. And so if you don't remember that, then you can be forgiven. But these are not the first 2 mutants. And in fact, I would point out that in actuality, we know that these coronaviruses mutate frequently. There are actually over 5,000 families of mutations. And the vaccine makers have been testing the antibody response of their animal models, or I should say the neutralizing effects of antibodies in their animal models against a lot of these strains already, and haven't found any to be concerned about. And but the theoretic problem with these 2 strains, the one in UK, the one in South Africa, is that the genetic mutation specifically affects the 3-dimensional space structure of the spike protein, that all-important spike protein, which our vaccines are intended to cause the immune system to recognize and have a reaction to. So if you're changing the shape and structure of the spike protein, there's theoretically a potential problem with vaccines. The only thing I can say about that is the vaccine makers are testing against these strains now, but they've said so far that they actually don't think there's going to be a problem with the vaccine effectiveness as a result.
Okay. We're going to have to leave it there. We are down to about 90 seconds and counting left. We've gotten through another hour. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Dr. Thomas Huth, Vice President of Medical Affairs at Reed Health. I hear you got a birthday coming up this weekend?
Well, maybe.
Happy birthday.
I'm trying to catch up with my wife, actually. I was going to say Dr. Jetmore, but he's actually a lot younger than he looks.
Dr. David Jetmore, Wayne County Health Department. Wow. There's a free drive-through COVID testing which has been taking place 9 a.m., 6 p.m. Through tomorrow, I believe, at the Wayne County Fairgrounds. Is that going on? So if you are in need of a test, still a place where you can go and get that. Don't forget that testing vaccination clinic actually is starting on Monday in the Elder Bierman building. You can go to, and I wrote it down. Do you remember the website? Ourshot.in.gov.
Yeah.
In order to register for that. And that can get you registered either with the health department or with Reed Health. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks for watching this week's Ask the Doctors on WGTV Channel 11. Have a great weekend. I wish you well. This episode of Ask the Doctors has been brought to you by Wayne County Government.
Hi, I'm Christine Stinson, the Executive Director of the Wayne County Health Department, and I'm here just to let you know that our COVID Vaccine Center is open and ready to serve you. So however you're receiving your information now, whether it's the radio station, the newspaper, or WCTV, or the Health Department social media page, please stay tuned and stay in touch with them. We'll be posting all of the information that way. Look for the time that we call your target population forward, and the registration links will be provided.